Today we are delving into the world of Warhammer 40,000 and we'll be making my first cave diorama. So to start, we'll make a sacrifice to the glue gods and start making our very own Space Marine Stern Guard veteran, who, after fighting in many battles against the Tyranids, is sent to investigate an abandoned mineshaft, where there are rumours of a hidden beast that lurks within. So, the mission has begun. To build a diorama, we are going to be using 2 blocks of foam, one for the background and another to build the mines. Once carved, I sillily drew some arrows to remind me which ways the pieces match. This have some bad marks, so don't do that. And then began to draw the layout of how I wanted the caves to look. Now we can assemble it and add some clay for some ground texture and fill in any gaps that I made along the way. When doing this, do not make it so smooth, we want all those lumps and bumps. And we can finally move on to phase 2. Using my favourite ground texture, this will give us the perfect, most beautiful, extravagant ground base you have ever seen. Honestly, it's pretty good stuff. Now this clay is actually quite difficult to work with, as it really likes to stick to your fingers, so that's why I glove up and let's compile the rest of the build. Okay. It's finally time to paint our Ultramarine. After the last time, I'm not gonna call it grimdark because... And while I don't fully disagree with everyone there, we're gonna paint it a bit more grungy, so we'll call it grunge dark. Now I've seen there's been a big trend around painting Space Marines with using a stippling method and using bits of sponge. Now, spoiler alert for how this turns out, I'm not the biggest fan of how this turns out, but I'll bring you guys along the way. So the basics of this method is that we start with a dark base tone, in this case Rhinox Hide Brown. After this, we'll use a diluted blue paint, and with a sponge or a brush, we will stipple this onto the brown. As you can see on the top right, in theory, adding more layers of the same diluted blue will give us a nice fade from brown to blue. Throughout this, we will increase the intensity and brightness of the paint and focus where the highlight should be. So using this method, it should give us a similar look to using enamel paints, with the browns around the edges and a nice highlighted blue towards the middle. Just make sure to be super patient with lighter colours like white. I start with a mid-grey and work upwards from that, otherwise you might be there all day. And then all that was left to paint was all the other little bits, all the golds, silvers, leathers. For this I used metallics and just generally normal painting. But there you have it. I'm indifferent with this Marine. I'm definitely going to try it again sometime and learn from the mistakes I did while painting this. I definitely think there's something interesting there I can work with, and it's always fun just to try something new. Let's get back to the diorama. Now I wanted to have a rock wall, and I saw a great YouTuber, Boylai Hobby Time, use his hot wire cutter. Except the one I have took literally an eon. Look at this is 15 times speed. So I tried using some clippers but gave up halfway through and decided to create a metaphorical mountain of plaster rocks. So with just me, my rocks, and 10 sticks of hot glue, I got to work. I also learned that you really need hot glue, and I mean hot glue. I'd say about 1 in every 5 the glue wasn't hot enough and it literally popped right back off. So make sure you wear a mask, otherwise those fumes will get you. With the bulk of the rock wall done, I grabbed some sand texture paste and began to fill in all of the cracks. Now I was worried the sand would look a bit too much like sand here, but then I remembered, Eureka! What does sand come from? That's right, rocks. So in theory, it should look perfect. And for the roof of the mineshaft, I pulled out my clippers, which leads us to the most daunting part of the diorama, the mineshaft braces. Or wood, I don't know what the word is. Now this, you really want to make sure to use the most scientific way of measuring your balsa wood. I did it by using my nail and indenting it, then ramming it into the foam, hoping it would stay and not snap. Experimenting with things just like this is really what the hobby is about, and it's so much fun. It really brings the creativity of the diorama into full force, and for me, it gives that childlike exploration you used to feel. As you can see, this is the jankiest setup ever, and I'm sure OSHA would approve. I also wanted some broken boards. What's your guess? Do you reckon this is going to hold a Space Marine's weight? I'm not even sure if I would walk over that. Now let's build and paint something I'm actually pretty happy with, the mighty Tyranid. For these bad boys, I'm using something I'm familiar with, contrast paints and enamels. For the carapace shell, we're starting with Magos purple, making sure not to get any on the white parts of the model, that I'm not painting. For the gun, I chose a really nice vibrant red, choosing colours that all synergize with each other. And for the fleshy bits, I used a lovely pink, or voluptuous pink. So after using Skeleton Horde for all the hooves and claws, I added another coat of Magos purple all over the carapace again. For some extra jazz, I painted his eyes and weapon parts in striking scorpion green. Okay, so bear with me, this was a high risk moment for me. I made a mixture of the same pink contrast paint and really diluted it, I then painted it all over the skin, and where it was too strong I dipped my brush back in the water and dabbed off any of the paint, diluting the existing paint. I did this to add some more of that nice, fleshy texture beneath the skin. Overall, I'm actually really happy with how this turned out for once. I'd actually be happy to leave it here, but because the rest of the diorama is quite grim and dank, I decided to grunge it up a bit more. For this, we'll be using some AK Interactive's dark brown wash. I coated this all over the model, making sure to get it everywhere, leaving no nook or cranny unturned. After about 3 minutes, I returned and started to remove the wash with some spirits.
Ooh.
We're in the end game now, and it's time to paint up the diorama. I started by priming everything black. I would use a spray can, but unfortunately that dissolves the foam. Once everything was primed, I did a white highlight, so when we apply the next range of paint, there'll be a nice bit of contrast on the rocks. And then finally I sprayed a nice warm grey all over the rocks. With the rocks out of the way, I used a nice brown contrast paint for all of the floor, mainly to add some colour and variety. I also added some yellowish highlights for some richness. After painting the wood in a yellowish tone, I soaked them all in the same dark brown wash we used earlier. All of that out the way, I made some holes for the mini LEDs, and after soldering the LEDs off screen, there you have it. I just want to say thank you if you've watched this far, considering liking and subscribing, or even becoming a member if you're that much of a cool person. I've been Reese, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thank you.